You're listening to Ideal Practice, episode number 206. Today, guys, we get to talk about the fun stuff in this whole hiring process that I'm teaching you. Today, we're going to get into how to conduct interviews. Not just how to conduct them. We've already been working on how to get the right people in the room, right? But the process I'm going to teach you today is going to show you how to weed out the folks that are not the right fit for you and how to hone in on the ones who really are, and then how to make your final decision. This is really good, really useful, very specific, and I want you to stick around to the end because I have created an assessment process, a tool for you that's going to help you immeasurably, and you're going to love it. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm Wendy Pitts-Reeves, and with over 2 decades of experience in the private practice world, I've built my 6-figure business while learning a lot of lessons the hard way. This is the first podcast that shows you how to apply the principles of energy, alignment, and strategy to build a practice that is profit-centered, but people-forward. This is the Ideal Practice Podcast. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ideal Practice Podcast. This is Wendy Pitts-Reeves, your host. And as always, I'm super excited about being here with you today. Today, we are continuing what is really a training that I am offering you through this podcast. For the last couple of weeks, I have been teaching you how to get clear about where you could use some help in running your business, where it makes the most strategic sense to hire that help, how to identify and design a job posting that's going to bring the right people in as qualified applicants in a really, 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 really effective way. And then today, we're going to talk about what to do with those applicants once they start showing up. Now, if you have not listened to the last couple of episodes and you are thinking about hiring somebody, I really encourage you to go do that. I am being very intentional, very deliberate, and very specific about what I'm teaching you here. So if you haven't done that, go back and check those out. For 4 weeks now, this is week 3, I am walking you through different stages of this process. And every week I've got a tool for you that's going to make it even easier. So if you haven't listened to the last couple, be sure and check that out. Now today, we're digging into the fun part. Today we're going to start working through the folks who show up, the people who reach out to you, the people who are interested. And I'm going to tell you exactly what to do now. Okay, we're going to talk about how to figure out who to interview. We're going to talk about what to do once you are interviewing them. We're going to talk about how to take this wider pool of people and narrow them down into a smaller group and what to do then. And I'm going to take you all the way through this because by the time we are finished today, you're going to know who to hire. You're going to be ready to extend an offer. And that's when it gets really exciting because you're about to bring help on board that you have been dreaming about. And they're going to be the right help too. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, everybody. So let's talk about the interview process. Before I get into this, I want to share something with you. So the last time I went through a round of hiring, I was looking for a couple of different folks to help me with the podcast, very specific positions. I put a lot of work into it. In fact, I would say in 20 plus years of hiring people, I probably went about this more carefully than I ever have. And much of what I'm sharing with you in this series it's really been an accumulated experience over the years, but I fine-tuned it in this last round of hiring that I did a couple of years ago. And I want you to know, it took me a long time. Like I spent a couple of months getting ready for this. I was looking for someone to help me edit the podcast. It was a task that I could handle myself. I can handle myself, and actually I kind of enjoy it. But at that point, it made a lot of sense for me to hand that off to somebody else in terms of all the different aspects to consider in how you run your business. And so I wanted to do that. And because I did what I'm showing you in this series, in the end, I had 2 very distinct, really outstanding candidates. 2. And I want you to know I took my time with both of those. I kind of put them through the ringer because I wanted them to know what they were getting into, and I was not going to go through this again. I wanted them to work. I wanted this to be good. And I did not regret that process. So that's why I'm going into so much detail here, and I encourage you to follow along. If you need help with it at any point, just reach out to me. Send me an email. My email is easy. It's wendy@wendypittsreeves.com. I don't mind answering a quick question here or there. I am here to help you in whatever I can. So if you get bogged down or you're a little fuzzy about something, just shoot me an email and ask. I will be happy to help you. Okay? Now, today we're going to talk about the interview piece. Now, as I have been saying all along, the reason all of this is important is you can do this quickly. You can just post something online, hire the first person or two that comes along that sounds pretty good, but you are at great risk of wasting a lot of time and a lot of money and creating some ill will if you don't go through the process to get the right person on board. That said, there are lots of important things to keep in mind along the way, so that when you hire the right person, they are not only going to be solving an important problem for you, but they're going to become a member of this beautiful thing that you're building for the long haul. That's what we're looking for here, the long haul, right? So I'm going to walk you through 2 phases of the interview process. We're going to talk about the sorting phase, where you're sorting out the candidates into the pool of people that you want to take a closer look at. And then we're going to talk about the hiring phase. Okay? There are 2 different aspects, and I'm going over both of those today. And I've got a tool for you that's going to help you track this over time. I'll share that with you at the end. Do stick around, because what sounds like a lot when you're just listening to it will be like, oh, I got it. When you see this tool, it'll lay it all out for you, and you're going to be like, okay, got it. Crystal clear. Okay. And I'm kind of excited about that too. So I cannot wait to get that into your hands. Super, super helpful, totally free. I'll give you the details of that at the end. But first, I want to teach you how to do this. All right. I want to teach you how to do this. All right. So let's talk about the sorting phase. So if you have done what I showed you how to do the last couple of episodes, you took the time to figure out exactly what you wanted to hire for and the characters and qualities and skills that person needed to have. Then you learned how to write that up in a descriptive format that you could post online that's going to weed out the people who are not a good fit and more likely draw those forward who are. So in this phase, the sorting phase, because you are going to have applicants, guys. That's the good news. You are going to get applicants. So in this sorting phase, where we're sort of thinning the herd, you're going to post the ad. I'm going to teach you how to process the responses that come in. I'm going to tell you how to conduct an initial interview and what to do with all that. And then I'm going to tell you about a process for zooming in on your finalists. And depending upon how many applicants you got, there may be actually a couple of layers to that as well. But there's a lot to this, and in particular, there's a process I'm going to share with you that many of you will be tempted to skip, but I'm going to tell you not to, because it is the thing that is going to shine a spotlight on your dream candidate. All right. So let's go through these 4 steps to the sorting phase as the applicants begin to come in. So obviously, okay, the first thing you're going to do, step 1, is post that ad that I taught you how to write last week. You took a lot of time in that. Remember, it was a very carefully crafted position profile. Remember that? I had that for you. I had the ideal candidate position profile that I provided for you last week. You took a lot of time with that. You wrote the thing, and now it's time to post it. So post that online in the job boards that make the most sense, where the right people are likely to see it. Okay, and that's going to vary from one person to the next where it makes sense to post that. I thought about going into that here, but I decided that was a bit of a rabbit hole I'm not going to do now, because where you post honestly depends heavily on what kind of person you're hiring. Is this an employee versus a contractor? Do you want someone local and in person, or is it somebody that can work remotely? Do they need to have a very specialized skill set, like they know how to design and manage a website? Or is it more of a generalist, like an admin who can help you with email and phone calls and your intake process? All of those things make a difference on where you're going to post that ad. And just a little side note here, this might actually be a great a place where you might want to do a little research using AI. I personally am using ChatGPT quite a bit these days. I have not dug into Claude, but a lot of the people that I trust are recommending both of those tools to be used in different ways. If you're not sure where to post your ad, I might encourage you to go choose one of those tools and do a little research that way. Okay. It's like, where does it make sense to post for your particular position? All right. So step one, get it out there, get it online, put it in front of your ideal audience, and let's see what happens. Step two is you have to process the responses that will come in. And I think you'll be surprised. It's really cool. It's really kind of fun when they start showing up. It's like, oh, look, somebody's interested. Yay. It's really fun to get those. But you got to get ready for this, because if it goes the way I think it will, you may actually get quite a few of these quickly, and you need to be ready to process those. So now that it is live, the first thing I want you to do is get organized, okay? Because you will likely get a lot of responses. So what I recommend is immediately create a subfolder in your email platform, whether it's Gmail or whatever you use. Set up a subfolder where you can immediately dump those responses. When people respond to you with an email, dump them into that folder so you don't lose them, first of all. And you might even want to create two, like one that's an automatic no, one is a maybe take a closer look, something like that. There will be one or two that right off the bat, you're like, yeah, no, whatever. You do need to address those too, though, so we're not just going to delete them, okay? So set up an email folder, a subfolder for these applicants to dump into so you don't lose them. Then I want you to start reviewing those applications. And we're going to do this a couple of ways. Your first pass, when you first just start, open the emails and just see what they say. The first thing you want to do is you want to screen for, or screen against, however you want to say that, the published criteria that you took so much time to write about for your job post. Remember? Hopefully you will have that in front of you so you can remember what you told people they needed to have. And as you're reading their initial response to you, did they follow your instructions? Is their communication clear? Does their experience match what you said you needed? Both the required, especially the required piece, and also the prepared piece that you wrote about as well. What evidence can you already see that they might have what they need to do this work? And y'all, for me personally, I'll tell you, I'm picky about certain things. I hope you are picky too. You're going to be paying these people and hopefully paying them well. So be picky, okay? I look for small but potentially important performance indicators that tell me something about how they do things. So for me, I look for things like sloppy writing, typos. If they send me some kind of a resume or something, I look for what is their work history. I'm really, really particular about typos, I'll tell you that, because that just automatically says something, because I expect that people are putting their best foot forward for me in the beginning. They want to make their best impression. And if I see a problem right off the bat, that already says something to me. You can call me picky. I don't care. Like I said, I hope you're doing the same thing. But this is your first pass. And as you go through these, for those who don't follow your instructions or are clearly not a good fit, and y'all, I really do want you to lean heavily on data and evidence, but I'm also going to tell you to trust your instincts. If you have an intuitive sense of like, yeah, this one doesn't feel right, you don't have to explain that to anybody. This is your business, okay? I want you to send those people a kind but clear thank you but no thank you kind of response. And just a little tip, it will help to have that email draft written in advance and saved in your drafts folder as a template. Save it as a template so you can just copy and paste it into a response to those emails. So you can send that off. They're taken care of. You can delete those people. You have closed that loop. I don't recommend just ignoring people, but that's just a value I have. I don't really like to do that. When I apply for something or pitch something, I kind of like to hear back from people, even if the answer is no. So personally, I would do that. You don't have to. Of course, you could just delete them, but I don't. Now you've got the people that are left, right, that you have dumped into your subfolder who are kind of like, okay, let's take a look at that. Now I want you to work through those. And y'all, you may have this open for a period of time. And you can decide in advance how long you want to hold it open. Maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month. I think I tended to hold it open for a couple of weeks. I did not want to drag this out. And I kind of like folks who are quick on the ball, right? If you're not getting enough responses or you're not happy with the quality of your applicants, of course, you could extend that window. You could also go back and review the things that we talked about in the first 2 lessons of this series and see if there's something there that you might need to tighten up. But assuming that you are getting the quality of applicants, I think you're going to be. At this point, I want you to narrow the list down to, let's say, 4 or 5 to 7 people, maybe, that are like, these are interesting. These are interesting. Now, remember, as you are looking through these and you're deciding the ones that are worth a closer look, remember, you are not hiring your best friend, guys. And in fact, I encourage you not to hire people that are family or close friends necessarily. Yes, of course, you want to like the person that you hire and you want to get along well, but that is not the most important factor here. Remember, you are actively, strategically, consciously, intentionally looking to hire someone who complements your strengths and balances out your weaknesses or the gaps or just the things that you just don't love. Okay? And you're looking for evidence, not just a hunch. And I do want to just throw in one other thing here that I thought of recently that I want to mention to you. I have a good friend that we often joke that she needs to hire a handler because in her business, she's a really strong creative soul and she needs someone who has more initiative and is a little bit more directive, who can be a really strong right hand for her. In my case, I also need a strong right hand, but I am much more comfortable delegating and leading. So we have a very different style in terms of how we work with other people. So that's also something you might want to ask yourself. This leads to the whole question about your own nature, your own personality, and what kind of person you need for yourself. Okay, if that makes any sense. It really does help to know what you're good at and where you're not, or what your own blind spots are and where you need somebody else to catch those. So I haven't talked about that as much, but that is every bit as important as the rest of this. So I just want to mention that before we go a little bit further. All right. So we have talked about step 1 and 2 of the sorting process. Post the ad, set up a subfolder, start dumping your responses into them, go through those, do an immediate weed out of those who are an immediate no, send them an email saying thank you, but no thank you, that you have written in advance that you can copy and paste. And for those who are remaining, we're going to take a closer look. And you have narrowed those down to a decent pool of people, hopefully no more than 5 to 7 people. Now what I want you to do, this is step 3 of the sorting process. I want you to conduct with these people just a brief initial kind of check-in, say hello, telephone interview. You could do this on Zoom. That's my preference. I really like, even if it's just 15 minutes or so, I like to do that on Zoom. But you can do it on the phone. Now, if you're talking with someone in another country, which I often am, that's a little bit harder. So I tend to always use Zoom. But whatever the method is of your choice, what I want you to do with this initial pool of people that you've already kind of whittled down to is I want you to conduct a brief 15 minutes, guys, brief initial call where you're taking a closer look. Okay. This is a chance to ask a couple of questions and just kind of get a sense of their energy and how you connect. That's where we're starting here. That's what I want you to do here. Now, before you get on those calls, I think it would help if you make a list of, let's say, 3 questions that you want to ask. Okay. And you might want to have 2 different lists, okay? Because we're going to do another version of this interview in a minute. This is your initial screening interview. Then step 4 is going to be a more in-depth interview. By all means, sit down and figure out what your questions are. For this initial 15 minutes, come up with 3. Three things you want to say, share, ask, whatever, so that you are asking everybody the same thing. When you have the same set of kind of core questions, that helps you compare more evenly across candidates. And as my friend Tisha Dodge, who is a small business attorney in Texas, she says that kind of consistency in your hiring practice will help you in lots of ways, actually. So step 3, conduct a 15-minute kind of a pre-screening interview, okay, that you've already decided in advance, 2 or 3 questions you're going to ask. That will weed out a few more people, depending upon how many folks you're talking to. And now we're going to get to step 4 of this sorting process. Step 4, we are now narrowing your selection to a final pool of serious candidates for an in-depth interview and a follow-up process I'm going to tell you about. Ideally, at this point, I wouldn't want you to have more than 2 or 3 people. That's pretty much where you should be at this point. Okay, so when you've gone through the email thing and then you've done this 15-minute kind of pre-interview screening call, after that, you're going to have a few folks who really, really stand out. And at this point, I'm just going to tell you what I personally really recommend here. And this too is a step a lot of people tend to skip. But this has been a game changer for me personally. It's just been so incredibly helpful. Once you are down to your final 2 or 3 candidates, the competition is stiff at this point. This is the part where you're going to start feeling guilty because you love them all and you want to hire them all and you're going to have to tell somebody no. I'm just going to tell you that ahead of time. Be prepared for that. But this is part of being the CEO of your own show. This is part of what it means to be a leader in your business. So this comes with the territory, okay? After you've done this and you're down to this final pool, what I encourage you to do is have your favorite 2 or 3 finalists take some kind of an assessment that helps you gain a deeper understanding of their work styles or their key personality traits. And yes, you can tell some of this just from the questions you ask and from some samples of their work, things like that. But personally, I like to use an assessment or 2. My personal favorite is the Kolbe A Index. I have mentioned that in a previous episode. That's KOLBE. And I ask them if they have already done that to send me their results. If they have not, I ask them to do it. And it's about $50 or $60 to take that assessment. I will pay for it. One of the reasons that's been helpful to me is because on the Kolbe, one of the things I know about myself is that I am a high quick start. That means I have a very high tolerance for risk. I am a low fact finder. That means I don't always dig into the details so much. So I can go off half-cocked sometimes. When I have been hiring for the positions I needed, I wanted the opposite of me. I wanted somebody who was a high fact finder, who was a low quick start, who was going to be more deliberate and more detailed, because that balances out my strengths and the gaps or weaknesses that I know about myself. See how that works? So that's why I personally like that. But guys, there are lots of these kinds of tests out there. You may have 1 or 2 of your own favorites. If you don't, I really encourage you to start with the Kolbes because I think that's one of the best. So yeah, this is an extra step. It's not required. You don't have to do it, but I definitely recommend it. And I do think this has played a role in how successful I have been and the people I've hired. It does take more time. It does add a level of commitment to the process, but I think it's a key to success for everybody. All right, so you're down to your pool of 2 or 3 of your true finalists. You have hopefully asked them to share with you, or you have put them through some kind of an assessment that kind of tells you a little bit more in terms of how they are going to be a good match. And now you're going to do an in-depth interview with these finalists. I think it helps to have those assessments before this conversation because it will inform you. It will tell you more and it will guide your conversation with them a little bit more. Now, this in-depth interview is going to be somewhere between, say, 30 minutes to an hour. And personally, if you are hiring locally, I think it'd be great if you conducted these conversations in person. But if this is a remote hire, they're long distance, which most of my people are, then definitely meet by video, whether it's FaceTime, Zoom, Google Meets, whatever tool you use. You want to see them while you're talking to them. So this is a bigger deal. Now, let me tell you what I'm looking for during this longer conversation. And it will be, you may have different things that you look for, but this is what I am looking for. The obvious thing is I right off the bat, and I already should have a sense of this, I'm looking for relevant skills, competence levels. What do they already know how to do? How skilled are they? How much experience do they have with it? I want to know how comfortable they are with the technology I use. I use quite a bit in my business in various ways. Do they already know about that stuff? How comfortable are they? How experienced are they? And how eager are they to learn if they're not? I'm super intuitive, and I pay attention to their communication skills, their language skills. I'm curious about their level of drive, ambition, initiative. I want to know how good are they at solving problems. Do they need me to hold their hands and walk them through everything? Are they a little bit more cautious and they want to be told exactly what to do? Or are they the kind of people who will go take it and figure it out? And there is a happy medium in there, y'all, where one is too much and one is too little. I don't want them doing things without checking with me in some ways. It depends. But I also don't want to have to tell them every single thing, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking for. I am especially interested in their own personal why. Why are they interested in this level, this role in particular? Why do they want to work with me in particular? Why do they want to join my business in particular? If they're just looking for a job, nothing wrong with that. But I'm looking for something more. I'm kind of trying to get a sense of their heart here, to be honest. And because I am so intuitive, I am very interested in their energy. Like, are they curious about things? Do they have a sense of humor? Do they light up when I share with them my vision for where I think I want to go? And what kind of history do they have that's going to make them more successful in this job? What kind of history do they have that might be a little bit of a red flag for me? I don't know. But those are some of the things that I personally am looking for. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite things, honestly, that I don't think most people think about, I pay attention to what kind of questions they ask me. That says a lot to me. Even in my counseling work, guys, when I've actually many times over the years coached people or taught people how to do interviews, how to be successful when they're the one being interviewed. And one of the things I always say is try to get to a point where you're asking them more questions than they're asking you. Because that shifts the energy of the interview. So I noticed that. What kind of questions are they asking me? Because that tells me something about them. Now, by the time you have gone through this detailed and in-depth process, you will by now have a pretty clear choice. You may be already down to one person. You may down to two. They are equally awesome at this point. And if you do have, actually, even if you only have one, but I'm going to recommend something here that is especially helpful if you have two or three. But I would do this even with one because I think this too is a step that people tend to not do, but it just shows so much. And that is, so here we're moving into the hiring phase now, guys. We're going to move into the hiring phase. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. So in the hiring phase, the actual we're ready to hire, there are 3 steps to this. 1, this is the magic. You are going to run your true finalists through a working audition, some kind of a working audition. That may be that you're going to ask them to solve a problem. It may be that you're going to ask them to do a project. I've done both. The second step is you're going to evaluate the results of that working audition, and you're going to make your final choice. And then the third step is you're going to extend the offer, and that offer is going to be tied to, I do recommend a 90-day trial period once you have hired them. Okay, so let's go through let's walk through each of those. So this is the hiring phase. So you now are down to maybe 2 people, maybe 3. You're going to put them through, this is step 1 of the hiring phase. You're going to put them through a working audition. And guys, even in my coaching work, when I have taught people to do this and they have done it, it has made such a difference. It is especially effective to ask a potential hire to take on a particular project or to solve a particular problem as part of this working audition. But this is not busy work, guys. This needs to be real and it needs to be relevant for the role that they are applying for. So let me give you an example of both of these. So when I hired Queenie 10 or so years ago, I had a process that I was doing in my practice with new clients that I wanted desperately to turn into an automated digital process. And for the life of me, I could not figure out a way to do it. So I told Queenie, I'll pay you up to 5 hours if you can help me figure out how to make this process automated and digital. And she did. And I was sold. And I've never looked back. More recently, a couple of years ago, when I was in the market to hire someone to help me with the podcast, what I gave those finalists was not a problem to solve, but a project. And that was, I had 2 outstanding applicants at the end, 2 really good people who were basically equal in almost every way. And yes, I was coping with the guilt I was already feeling. But I gave each of them 1 podcast episode to edit. And I gave them the exact same episode, the exact same set of instructions. And I turned them loose. Here's what I want. Here's how to do it. Go to work and then send me what you got. And again, I paid them for their time. I told them I was willing to pay up to 5 hours. And I don't remember how I determined the rate at this point, but it was whatever I was willing to pay. Okay? So for you, let's say, for example, if you're hiring an administrative assistant, give them some kind of a messy scheduling problem that you've got and ask them how they would solve it. Don't ask them how they would solve it. Ask them to solve it. Let's say you're hiring somebody to help you with your marketing. Give them a piece of existing content that you've already created and ask them to improve it or repurpose it, and give them very specific instructions. Turn them loose, see what they do with it. Maybe you're like me, you're hiring a podcast editor. I just told you about what I did there. And guys, do be willing to pay people for their time. If you're asked, this is above and beyond, right? And they are patiently following you through this process. So I think that is respectful. I'm going to tell you this, that also sets you up well for the next phase of this whole process that we'll talk about next week, which is trust. That's the 4th part of the CAST method. It's building trust in the hiring and in the onboarding process with your new hire. And the fact that you're willing to pay them, that speaks well, I think, of what it means to work for you. Okay? All right. So in these 3 aspects of the hiring phase, this is a biggie. This takes a little bit of time. You put them through the working audition, and then they turn in their results and you evaluate those results, right? Step 2, now you make your choice, guys. Time to make a decision. Making decisions is the number 1 thing you do as a CEO all day long, and this is a biggie. Make your decision. Say thank you to the person you're saying no to, and extend the offer to the person you're saying yes to. And next week, we'll talk about what happens now. We'll talk about how to build trust, how to bring this person into the fold, how to onboard your new hire. But for now, just take a moment to celebrate, because you just did a big thing. You hired help. And the odds are that you're going to be very pleased with the person that you hire because you have done your due diligence, because you have followed the CAST method for hiring the right people. You took time to get clarification. You got clear about what position you wanted to hire and what criteria a successful candidate would have for that position. Then you worked through the application process. You designed the application process and the ad that you would use for that application process, and you were very strategic about that. Now you have gone through this strategic interviewing and selection process where you brought in the applicants by email, you weeded out the initial group, you narrowed that down to a smaller pool, you did a 15-minute interview. Out of that, you brought down an even smaller pool of final candidates. You did an in-depth you did an assessment of some sort, then an in-depth interview, and now you're down to the last 2 or 3, and you have actually given them a project to conduct or a problem to solve that is real, that is already making your life better. And now you've made a decision and you've extended the offer. Congratulations. Congratulations. You just did a really freaking big thing. And it might have taken you a few months to get through this whole thing because there's a lot on your end that you have to prepare. There's a lot of backstage work that you have to prepare. But it is worth every minute. So for me, I told you that the last time I was hiring, I got down to those last 2 applicants, right, that I was just talking about, that were such a perfect fit. It was a tough decision. They both did a great job. But in the end, I did indeed say yes to one, and I'm so sorry, but no to the other. I kept that person, though, because there's an idea I may well go back to that person in the future, right? But I did make a decision, and I hired somebody who was a perfect fit for my team and who helped me take my own planning process for the podcast to the next level. Not only did that person help me with the editing, but that person helped me design an entire system around how we vet potential guests for the podcast and how we manage those guests all the way through from our initial interaction with them to the day the podcast interview goes live and what happens after that. And it won't surprise you all to hear that there are quite a few steps involved in that as well. But you know what? Our system is quite sophisticated. And to this day, I get compliments about that from my guests. I can't tell you how many times I've had people here on the podcast who have said they have been really impressed with how my team handles things behind the scenes, which makes me just a proud mama. Okay, so now you know exactly what to do. I told you I had a little tool for you, a little gift for you today it's going to help you because on this tool, I have laid out these steps for this interview selection process. I call it the CAST Candidate Selection Scorecard. The CAST Candidate Selection Scorecard. And you can get your own copy at my website, wendypittsreeves.com/interview. Because this is the scorecard you're going to use for those interviews. Isn't that great? Yes, it's great. Because on the scorecard, I am showing you exactly what to consider, what factors to take into consideration as you're talking to these people. It's going to help you remember things, and it's going to give you a place both not only to score them, but to also capture stuff that just sort of rises to the surface for you. And it's going to help you track your ideal applicants all the way through. I love it. I'm rather proud of this, and I think you're going to love it too. I wish I'd had this myself now that I've designed it for you. So go get that, wendypittsreeves.com/interview, and you'll get that scorecard. Okay, that's what I've got for you today. I hope you love it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of the Ideal Practice community. I love you all so much. Have a great week, everybody, and I'll see you next week for part 4 of this entire, and we'll close out this training series, okay? Part 4, right here on the Ideal Practice podcast. Bye now. Hey, y'all. If this program has become important to you, if Ideal Practice matters, it would mean so much to me if you'd be willing to take just a minute to do 1 or 2 of the following things. First of all, would you follow or subscribe to the show here at Ideal Practice? Following me helps you because you'll never miss an episode, but it helps me as well for all kinds of reasons. To do that, all you have to do is go to the show page for Ideal Practice on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. There, just click on the plus sign that you'll usually find in the top right-hand corner, or click on the word follow that you're going to find somewhere there on that page. Of all the things, this really is the most important thing you can do for the podcast itself. While you're there, it would be extra special if you would be willing to give me a 5-star rating, and even better than that, a review with your own words. Your words matter. And when you write what you feel, what you think, you uplift and encourage others. And I love that. If you want to go a step further than that, take your favorite episode or two, one of the ones that has meant a lot to you, and share it with a friend. Could you do one or two of those things for me? I promise I will love you forever. You guys matter to me, and I value your support more than I can possibly say. Thank you, sweet friend, for anything you can do to help me out and support the show. I'll see you again soon.